Hot Springs Village Inside Out is a closer look at the greatness of Hot Springs Village, Arkansas, and the surrounding areas. People, places, experiences. Hot Springs Village is one of the most beautiful places on earth. Join me, Randy Cantrell, and my co-host, Dennis Simpson, as we engage in weekly conversations to explore Hot Springs Village Inside Out. Today's show is brought to you by Central Arkansas's favorite radio station, KVRE. Find them on the dial at 92.9 FM. Stream them live at kvre.com. RE/MAX of Hot Springs Village, the award-winning RE/MAX of Hot Springs Village, is the largest real estate office inside the village with over 30 full-time agents and support staff. Visit them to learn more about this beautiful place to solve your real estate needs. Call them today at 1-800-364-9007 or find them online at explorehsv.com. They are RE/MAX of Hot Springs Village at 1-800-364-9007 or online at explorehsv.com.
Dear listeners and watchers, you have no idea what has gone on behind the scenes before we got Mr. Jerry Salley with us today. Jerry, great to have you today. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Dennis. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing better. Between medical issues and scheduling and technical malfunctions, we had a fantastic interview we did, and it just never made it in the can, Jerry. So let's try this again.
Sounds good. It's always good to visit with you. So I'm glad
we're becoming buddies. Never met you. Still becoming buds. So right. This coming Thursday night. Because this is going to come out Tuesday. This coming Thursday night on the 30th. You and the trio are going to be with us, and you want to tell us who the trio is here in just a minute, but you and the trio are going to be with us at the Woodlands for the Lifelong Learning Institute, and we're eager to do that. But before, I forgot. Funniest thing that ever happened to you or happened on the road that somebody said to you, just a quick, great, funny story. And I know I'm stalling because I'm giving you a few seconds.
Oh, geez. There's so many things that have happened. I've been traveling with these guys for over 30 years. We've been doing this.
Wow.
And, oh, shoot. I'm trying to think. One of the most embarrassing things was the time that we actually stayed at some folks' home. They were hosting us at a venue there in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Mm-hmm. But the folks that were doing it were construction. They owned a construction company, had a huge home. They had like 7 kids. I'm not exaggerating. So they had a nice big place to put us up. And I promptly stopped up one of their commodes. So I don't know if anybody else found that funny, but Carl and Larry thought it was pretty hilarious.
Hey, listen, it's really been great having you guys. Don't worry. If you come back, there's a hotel down the end of the street if you want to come back, right? Right, Jerry?
Sounds good.
Well, these kind of stories and more. And Jerry, we've had with the Lifelong Learning Institute, which Larry Wilson is helping us sponsor, a great guy, and we really excited to work with him. I just got through. We just got through having Bill Wythe and Brent Barnes, great guys again. I know you know them, and we've actually. I'm sorry, say that.
They're good friends of mine. I've actually written with Brent and Bill both. Actually, Bill writes for Billy Blue Publishing, which is a part of a record label that I run.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow. And here I didn't think he had a day job. He didn't look like somebody that worked to me. You know what I mean?
You probably didn't think he had any other friends either.
Well, no, when you said you knew him, I'm thinking, so they owe you money too. Is that how?
Right?
Yeah. No, these are genuinely great guys. And excuse me. And Larry has put together a great job of getting in some really deep Nashville talent. Bill is in the Nashville Broadcasters Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
You are a Dove Award winner, if I'm not mistaken. We've got so much to talk about. And I guess what is fascinating to me, and we touched on this on the other show we did that never made it to the can, is that it's fascinating to me how much talent there is on the top at Nashville, but that's the tip of the iceberg. There's like 200 times that under that. Tell us how you got to Nashville. I want to hear that story.
Oh, geez. Well, it's a long story. I'll make it as short as possible. But my dad played banjo when I was growing up. So I was exposed to bluegrass and country music and gospel music when I was just a young fella.
And you grew up where?
So, I grew up in Chillicothe, Ohio. It's in the southern part, right about about 45, 50 minutes south of Columbus,
Okay.
in the south central part of Ohio. And my dad worked at a paper mill his whole life. Mead Paper was the largest employer for counties around. And that's where my dad worked his whole life. He was an electrician there. But he was a great banjo player, never played professionally, but he instilled in me, you know, my love for music and my desire to be a musician. But anyway, long story short, I ended up going to college. I knew I wanted to come to Nashville as soon as I graduated. So within 2 months of, within 7 weeks, actually graduating from college, I was living in Nashville. And I auditioned. I had no job. I had no nothing really. I just had a dream. And came to Nashville and auditioned for a theme park that was called Opryland, USA. And it was a huge theme park. It's where the Grand Ole Opry, the grounds were located, where they moved the Opry in 1975 out there, and or 74. And so I ended up, I didn't get a job right away, but I got a job in the spring. I moved there in August, 40 years ago this month. 40 years ago this month.
Wow.
And I got a job. They said, well, we want you in the shows, but we can't start until the next year. So it was in the spring of the next year that I started. I was in a cast of characters that were incredible people. And almost every single one of them went on to make a living somehow in the music business. I played Flat and Scruggs with a guy named Steve Chapman, and we became really close buddies. We started writing songs together.
What's Steve's middle name?
Well, he's now Stephen Curtis Chapman.
I think I've heard that name. I've heard that name before, I believe. Yeah.
We actually wrote a song called Hiding Place that got him his record deal. And after he became a star, we wrote several other songs, but one called His Strength is Perfect was one of the most recorded songs I've ever been a part of. That's what we won the Dove Award on. I've been nominated. I guess I've just got nominated for 2 more Doves this year, but 40 years later. But it's
you're
so
a slow
funny.
starter. Starter.
I know it. But anyway, His Strength is Perfect was put in the Baptist hymnal in 2009.
Really?
Yes.
They still make hymnals? Really?
They do. That was so many years, I guess. But we're working on the Episcopals now and the Methodists and all those guys. So
you're worming into the Episcopals. They'll never know what hit them.
Right. That's right. But man, so many other people. Marty Rowe was in our group. He's the lead singer for a group called Diamond Rio, who have been really successful. Skip Ewing, who had a record deal for a while, great songwriter, who he was in our cast. A girl named Shonda Pierce, who's gone on to be a huge Christian comedian. Just on and on. People that was in the shows with us out there. It was a great breeding ground for young talent to get a chance to. That's how I met Minnie Pearl and Roy Acuff. Roy had me on the Opry, and Porter Wagner would have me on the Opry, but we all met because of that great relationship we all had with the Opryland Music Park. It was a great opportunity for me.
I got to ask, when you're standing on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry, and I mean no disrespect by this at all, but we all find ourselves at some point looking around and going, now, how did I get here? Now, how did this? Which one of these is not like the other? Roy Acuff, Minnie Pearl, me.
That's right. That's right. I will never forget. I was blessed to do the Opry as a solo artist several times back then. Wow. I've been on it several times as playing and singing with other people since then. But I remember back in the day, the very first time ever, my oldest daughter was born May the 11th, 1984, and the very night she was born, Porter Wagner called the hospital and invited me to be on the Grand Ole Opry the next Saturday night, a week later. And I had been doing some TV shows with him. He had a show called Porter Wagner at Opryland that was on the TNN network back in the day. And so I'd become friends with Porter. He was very good to me. And but that was the first time. I will never forget. I sang a song. I sang an old Ronnie Millsap song called "Daydreams About Night Things," and I only prepared for one song. I love
that song. I'm having daydreams about night things in the middle of the afternoon.
That's it.
That's a great song.
Only song I had prepared. The audience, I was just one of those magical moments, and so I didn't have another song, so I came back. They wanted an encore. I came back. We sang it again. Did the same song twice. Because I'd only rehearsed with the band once. So, and then one other time, there's so many great stories about being on there, but the one time that Roy Acuff had me on as his guest, he would stay out on stage and sit on a stool and just kind of sit behind you and watch you, which was kind of weird But
I remember seeing that he was just kind of a stage lurker, and he wouldn't do anything, just sit there and watch.
He stood there. He stood right there. I got a great picture of him standing right there, looking at me. It's just, it's something I'll never forget. And when he asked me, I'll never forget that I only had one song prepared that day too. And he said, "Well, Jerry," he said, "these people kind of like you." He said, "We're going to find out how professional you are." And of course, I was like, "Oh my gosh," because you never knew. He used to play with a yo-yo on stage. I thought, man, I hope you don't ask me to do that yo-yo. So anyway, he said, "We're going to find out how professional you are." He said, "I know you only have one song prepared, but can you sing another song for these folks?" And I swear, Dennis, I never missed a beat. I looked at him. I said, "Mr. Acuff, I'll sing all night long if you'll let me." And so I did the second song. At the end of that, I feel this arm around me, and he starts stomping his foot, and he starts singing, "I Saw the Light." And in my mind, I thought, because you're standing in a that they cut out of the old Ryman Auditorium and moved to the new Opry. So I'd already freaking out. I had dry mouth from thinking about standing in that circle where Hank Williams had stood and all these people. Here he is. He's got his arm around me. He's stomping his foot, singing, "I saw the light." And I'm singing with him, and I'm standing there thinking, I am standing in the middle of this circle singing "I Saw the Light" with Roy Acuff. I think I have died and went to hillbilly heaven.
Did you get chills?
That's literally what I thought.
I got chills from you telling the story, man.
It's the truth. I stood there. I thought, I have gone to hillbilly heaven.
I bet. Well, and anyway, you caught me flat-footed here. I'm stunned. I had no idea. But the whole one song preparation, I'm seeing a trend here. So I'm seeing it looks like you may know the song by Paul Simon. My wife and I love this song. It's called "One Trick Pony." One trick is all that horse can do. He knows one trick only. It's his principal source of revenue. Anyway, you know what I mean.
I do.
Wow. And how old were you when that happened? I'm just curious.
I was 24 when I was on with Porter, and I was 25 or 26 when I was on with Roy, probably 25 with Roy. It was so funny. As we're walking off stage, the show's over, and Acuff looks at me and he said, "Sally," he said, "you could have a career in this here country music if you wanted one." And of course I said, "Well, thank you, sir." That's all I said. But in my mind, I'm thinking, why don't you help me? Of course that's what I wanted to do. That's why I'm here.
Do you think I wandered off the street? Do you think I came here on purpose? I meant to do this. So
he was a good man. He signed a lot. I've got a lot of things in my home that's laying around that he's signed for me and hanging on the walls. That he was a good man. He really was.
I don't know why I'm going blank on this, but I'm thinking of Ricky Skaggs and who was the guy that was his mentor? The bluegrass.
Well, he had Ricky had there's Ralph Stanley. He was in.
Yeah.
He was in a lot of different Tony Rice he was with for a while, but they were the same age. But Ralph was one of his big people he looked up to. Monroe, of course, Bill Monroe was one that I think Monroe might have been the first one to ever have Ricky on stage when he was like 6 or 7 years old.
I was thinking about Monroe, and I was wondering, in my mind, I'm the name of this show is Hot Springs Village Inside Out. Trust me, I am the outsider in every way about this. And I see when you talk about chatting with Stephen Curtis Chapman or working with him and doing Flatt and Scruggs knockoff or whatever, and realizing those relationships that will last you the entire length of your life. There will never be a time that you don't go, man, you remember when I just got out of high school and I came down here and started this? I mean, did your dad go, "Hey, great idea, go to Nashville"? Nobody's ever thought of that before. Good idea, Sally. Let's see how this works.
I had incredible parents. My mom's still living. Dad's passed away. But they never once discouraged me from coming down here and trying this. I have a lot of friends, and I see a lot of young people today. It kind of breaks my heart because I see a lot of very talented young people today who want to pursue music, and believe it or not, there are parents who say to them, "Oh, but you got to be able to make a living," that kind of thing. And my parents never did that to me. I have been in a lot of interviews for people where people say, "What is it you do?" And I'm a songwriter, Well, what do you do for a living? Well,
Oh, really? No, really, what do you do?
Right.
No. Not your hobby, what you make money at. Okay.
Right. But I will never forget. I'm going to try to do this without getting emotional, but I bought a little house in Madison, Tennessee when I moved down here, got the job at Opryland. And I'd been at Opryland 2 years, I think, before I got the opportunity to be on the Opry. And my mom and dad had come down for the Opry that night. You know, they came down from Ohio, and I'll never forget standing in my backyard. And I looked at my dad and I said, Dad, I'm going to do this. I am going to do this. I just know this is what I'm supposed to do. And he looked right at me and he said, Jerry, he said, I believe you, son. He said, I believe you. And he had never said that to me before. But that was the night before I was on the Opry the first time. And
I don't think people, Jerry, I don't think people have a clue the value of words. I really don't. I don't think the impact on somebody's life, you will, the day you're on your deathbed, you'll remember that event.
Oh, absolutely.
Till the day you die.
Yeah. So, but it meant the world to me. And I knew that, but he just never verbalized it before. You know, I knew he believed in me, but he also knew how tough this was. And he knew how many people were down here trying to do it. And, you know, and, I'm just very, very fortunate, really, that I got to come when I did, because there was a lot of opportunity back then for songwriters and singers and everybody else.
Well, we had talked about this a little bit before, but I mean, things change. Things change daily. I understand that. I mean, Opryland theme park no longer exists as it was. It's not there at all. And I think that's sad.
Yes.
I hope that we move back to a sort of live entertainment. And don't get me wrong, you and I are making use of the benefit of a technology that this is pretty remarkable if you think back on it, right?
Sure.
But the bottom line is there is nothing like people standing in front of each other and singing a song and clapping and going, amen, or wow, or great, or being moved. There's no amount of electrons that can substitute for that ever.
Yeah, that's
ever.
right.
And for what goes through my mind, and we had joked about this before, that, you know, I thought going to Nashville was you obviously had to sleep in your car a mandatory 2 or 3 nights. Then you go to the Bluebird Cafe and Taylor Swift and Garth Brooks are there, and you sing a song. And if you mess up, okay, it's all right. But there's not that many people lined up to sing at the Bluebird, right? And you get your name on the list and they go, oh, Dennis, oh my God, Jerry, come here, Dennis, y'all are great. This is wonderful. $1 million contract. Is that how it goes? It's not how it goes?
No, no. That's exactly how it goes.
No.
No. I was very blessed. Before I moved to Nashville, that's kind of a long story too. Everything's a long story.
We got all day, man. We got all day.
When I was in high school, just about to start college, and I decided. I mean, I thought it was important to go to college because I knew that there was a lot of, you know, people when they go to Nashville. You know, you're one of 1 million people, but you're usually the star in your hometown, right? That's why you got the guts to go, you know? But anyway, I was it was in Columbus, Ohio. It was like a Grand Ole Opry show. It was every Saturday night on WMNI Country Radio. And it was called the WMNI Country Cavalcade. And it was a live every Saturday night on the radio. And I was a regular there throughout my college years. And I had just started playing there right before college.
Big frog in a small pond. Exactly.
And it gave me an opportunity to meet a lot of people. You know, I opened up for a lot of really cool people, and made a lot of contacts there. But there was a young lady there that played up there a lot, and she had a regional record out. Her name was Holiday Parker, and she had a regional hit out, and I had written a song on the record. It was a little 45. I had the B-side, if we remember what B-sides were.
I remember what a 45 was too. So in case of that.
Yeah. Right. So there was a guy there who was a guest that night on the show. He was from Nashville. He was trying to be a star, but I found out later he really was a booking agent and worked at Atlas Artist Bureau, which was booked Ernest Tubb and a bunch of people here in Nashville. Long story short, this company he worked for had publishing companies, and he asked me that night. Holiday was on the show that night. He was on there. I was on there, and she was singing the song. And I said, yeah, that song that she's going to sing next is mine. He said, well, who published that? And I didn't know what a publisher was. Honestly, I didn't know that from Shinola. And so he signed one of my songs. And it was there's 3 PROs. There's 3 performing rights organizations in America, ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC. He said, we just started a CSAC company and want to sign you that. So next thing I know, you know, I didn't know any better. I just signed with him, and I became a CSAC member, and which gave me the most incredible gift I could have ever had, because I met a lady here named Diane Petty who ran. She was the first female executive record executives in Nashville. She was vice president of ABC Records and had left there to run the CSAC division of Nashville. But when I moved to Nashville, fast forward all that, passed through college, and I stayed in touch with all them. She was like my mother when I moved here. She introduced me to everybody. She was so kind and so good to me. And I am still a CSAC writer. I signed in 1978, and I am still with them. And I'm one of the longest members they've ever had. So it's been an incredible ride. It really has been. But I knew Diane when I moved here, but she was the only one. So it was just an incredible time to be here. People really genuinely helped each other. The songwriting community there were more of us that were just what I would call pure songwriters, not artist writers, but people that only wrote songs that were never going to be artists. And they were just good to each other and helped each other. I had friends that I met after I'd been here a while who were pitching my songs that didn't have anything to do with the songs. You know, I'd say, why do you pitch that song? You're not a writer on it. You don't own the publishing on that. And they would say, well, because it needs to be heard. It's a good song. That's kind of the songs we need cut around here. And so I miss those days. It's really a lot smaller community. I think I told you the other day, when I moved here, there were over 2,000 songwriters in Nashville that had publishing deals.
So dedicated songwriters, that's all they do Monday through Friday.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how many now?
There's less than 200 now. Less than 200 full-time pure songwriters. Now when you add in the artist writers, see, when I moved to town, a lot of these folks did not write their own songs. There was Dolly wrote songs, Willie wrote a few songs. There were a few people that wrote their own songs. Merle wrote a few songs, but he didn't write all his songs. Willie wrote most of his songs, but not all his songs. So even Dolly wrote most of her songs, but not all of her songs. So there weren't today. If you're an artist, they want you to write most of your songs with people like me or other pure songwriters in town. First thing they do when you get a record deal in Nashville these days is you become a songwriter, whether you've written a song before or not, because there's actually, we don't need to go into it, but I can explain later. There's a way they save money by doing that. It's called controlled composition.
Controlled composition. So let me get this straight. So the Mamas and the Papas, California Dreamin', Phillips, what's her name? John Phillips is sitting writing the song on a bus coming back from California. And he wakes up his wife, who's a model at the time, the Mackenzie Phillips mom, and I can't think of her name right now. And she basically writes out everything he said.
Yeah.
So for the rest of eternity, she got half of the money of California Dreaming because she wrote down every word. Right. Is it a little bit something like that, Jerry?
Well, it depends on who you're writing with. I mean, I want to be fair. Some of these new artists are great writers. Some of them, they just sit there and dictate. Yeah. Or
they got their name on the credits. They got their name on the credits.
Yeah. Now, having said that, they might tell you that when they were in the room with me, I was really an idiot that day. So it may just have been, a timing thing, because there are days that, some days you got it and some days you don't. But if you do it enough, you'll get something every once in a while. But yeah, it's different now. It's just different. I can't explain it. Back in the day, people would cut the best song no matter who wrote it, and it's not always like that.
So, well, Bill and Brent were saying the other day that they had that same scenario that, you have everybody in the room agrees this is the best song, and the artist goes, yeah, but I'm going to cut the one with my name on it. Yeah. Right. Because I get the credits or I get the whatever. Well, I tell you what, let's do. Let's go back to and come back around to the show coming up on the 30th here, because people could listen to me and you reminisce for days, I guess.
We could talk. I could write a book. Maybe I should write a book.
I think you should write a book. And I think me and you and Mr. Acuff could kind of, hash it out, if you know what I mean. I'll let you do this all night, excuse me. But no, what I want to say, what are we going to hear on Thursday night? What are these songs? What to the average layperson, they would go, hey, I recognize that song. Right, give me some ideas and give me some leads there.
Yeah. Well, between the three of us, we've had over 100 million records sold on songs that we've written.
100 million.
Yeah. And a lot of that, though, is due. I'm the baby of the group. And I have not had a song recorded by Garth Brooks, but Carl and Larry both have. So so that put a lot of in it. I've had about 19 or 20 million of my own songs recorded over the years.
Measly beginner. Measly beginner.
But for my side, and then I'll talk a little bit more about Carl and Larry too. I've had songs recorded by John Anderson and I had a song recorded by Elton John at one time. Chris Stapleton, I have a song on his Traveler album. And I've been very blessed to have a lot of country hits. I've also had a lot of gospel hits, and I've had a lot of bluegrass hits. So I've been very blessed in all three genres.
What are you nominated? And I'm sorry, what are you nominated for the Dubs this year?
Well, the Dubs this year, I'm not nominated as a songwriter this year, but I produced an album last year called Country Faith Bluegrass. And Country Faith is a series of positive country gospel albums that are in the Cracker Barrel store. And so
really?
I went in, yeah. So what I did, I went in and they had always just leased tracks. In other words, when they put a Country Faith project together, they would just lease, a Carrie Underwood song and a Craig Morgan song and do it that way. Well, they came to us because I run Billy Blue Records, which is a bluegrass label, and they knew I produced records, and they said, "Man, would you guys be interested in doing a bluegrass Country Faith bluegrass version?" We've never done a bluegrass record, but they've done Country Faith wedding songs, Country Faith gospel, stuff like that. So they said, but what about if we go in and cut brand new songs? We've never done that before. So I went in and produced 8 new recordings, never recorded before. And then I leased 6 other songs to get 14. I leased songs from Vince Gill, Patty Lovis, and Rick Skaggs, Charlie Daniels. He did a bluegrass record actually about in 2012 that I pulled Daniel Prade off of, or not Daniel Prade. That was the Patty song. Walking in Jerusalem, just like John was the Charlie song.
Yeah.
I produced a song. One of the greatest honors of my career. I produced a song on the legendary Dolly Parton, and it was in 2020. We didn't really see each other a lot because of what was going on, but she gave me this guitar. It was just her and a guitar playing real slow of In the Sweet By and By. And she said, "You can take my vocal and do whatever you want to with it." I built a band and a whole different arrangement around her vocal. And then I added myself, Carl Jackson, Larry Cordell, and our dear friend Bradley Walker singing bass. And we became like the Jordanaires for this record for her. So it's so it's In the Sweet By and By, Dolly Parton featuring Cordell, Jackson, Sally, and Walker. And so it is nominated for a Dove for the country/bluegrass song of the year and the country/bluegrass album of the year in the Doves. And it's also nominated 2 weeks before that at the IBMA, which is the International Bluegrass Music Association Awards in Raleigh, which is the last week of September. And it's nominated for collaborative recording event of the year and gospel bluegrass recording of the year. So I don't know, what kind of, there's so many we're up against great records. I mean, everyone in these categories are very deserving, but it's just an honor to get to work with her. It's something I'll never forget, and I'll always be grateful for. And so that's.
So did you just lift her track off her vocal track off that? Yeah.
We took. She actually had done 2 passes on that song, and I kind of combined a couple of different things, but for the most part it was one of those versions that I used. But again, it's amazing what you can do with technology. But she, I was really, it was very I was so excited, and yet I was so nervous because you don't want to screw this up, right? I mean, when I finally got it, it took me forever to get it where I wanted her to listen to it. And when I did, I was just scared to death. And she sent me the most beautiful note, just telling me how much she absolutely loved it and how grateful she was. And, it's almost like, Dennis, the bigger the star, the nicer they are. Really? That's happened several times over my career.
Well, it sounds to me also, and I think part of the scenario is that, you prepare. I mean, you didn't just send her your first rough. You obviously waited till you got it where you really, really, really wanted it. But more than anybody, I guarantee you, your first year at Opryland, you met a sound guy, then you said, "Man, I need you to be my buddy because I'm gonna sing the bass on this part, and it's not my best end. So make sure and boost me up, okay?"
Right.
So you know what a technologist can do between you and the final product. You're well too aware of that, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly.
Well, you were telling us before on one of the other shows we did. You were telling us about the way you guys sing the trio with each other. And a lot of times when there's 3 or 4 different songwriters, or one will play and the other will just kind of sit back and watch the other. What do you guys do?
Well, we're more like a band. Carl is one of the greatest musicians that ever lived, and I'm not exaggerating. He can play anything with strings. And he actually left. Carl Jackson left home at 14 years old to join Jim and Jesse, which was at that point in time a huge bluegrass group on the Grand Ole Opry members, having a lot of records on country and bluegrass radio. And so he left at a very young age to play banjo for them. And years later, he would get a job with, and he'll talk about this a lot in the show. He got a job with Glenn Campbell. And he played guitar. He was a multi-instrumentalist in the shows with Glenn, but he played a lot of guitar with Glenn. And I think he's one of the greatest guitar players I've ever in my life. I wrote a song in honor of him, actually, that I recorded a few years ago called "If I Could Play Guitar Like Carl Jackson." And,
is that a little bit like the song "Stealing from Chet"? We sat all day long. We were stealing from Chet.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately I never stole anything from Carl. That's the problem. I got lazy because I played with him all these years, and he was such a great lead player. So Carl will play all the leads on everything that we play and sing. When it's my turn to sing, I'll sing the lead, and Carl will do the tenor, and Larry will do the baritone. When it's Larry's turn to sing, Larry will sing the lead. I'll sing the baritone. Carl will sing the tenor. And when Carl sings lead, I do the tenor, and Larry does the baritone. So the reason we kind of got the nickname the trio was because of the harmonies. We I'm not I'll just come out the wrong way. We have a unique blend, and we literally do sound like brothers to me. And we have done this for a long time, and we can almost tell when each other is going to take a breath, So but we love each other. That's the other thing. We have been friends and doing, you don't travel over 30 years with somebody on the road, still be together and still love hanging out with each other, unless you really have a brotherhood there. And but Carl's written so many big songs. He's a multi-Grammy Award winner. He's produced an album called Livin', Lovin', and Losin', Songs of the Louvin Brothers. And I was on that record, but only because Carl was the producer. I was the least known guy on it. But it won the Grammy that year. 2003, we won a Grammy for Country Album of the Year.
Really?
And so, and Carl won another Grammy on that album. There was a cut on there of Alison Krauss and James Taylor together singing "How's the World Treating You?" And country song. Yeah.
You talk about harmonies. That song, "How's the World Treating You?"
Yeah.
Oh my God, I remember that. Many times when you hear Alison Krauss, she has a voice that just literally slices
absolutely
like a knife. And I want to come back to Carl just for a moment. And for those that don't know, I think that a lot of times, Glenn Campbell is from Delight, Arkansas, not Delight, Delight, Arkansas.
Delight, that's right.
And a great guy and fantastic musician. If you haven't seen his show, I'll Be Me, the movie or the documentary, I'll Be Me, about his struggle with Alzheimer's, it's amazing because he literally cannot remember the name of his daughter standing 3 feet from him, but he never misses a lick on the guitar and he never misses a lyric. It's clear it's a different part of his brain that makes that click and work, and it's a vicious disease. But that said, what people don't know many times is that Glenn Campbell was part of what they called the Wrecking Crew.
That's exactly right.
And I'll let you tell why they called him the Wrecking Crew.
Well, you go ahead. But a lot of people do not know where he got his start and what an incredible musician he was before folks really knew what the singer,
Yeah, and you think of him as this, Southern Nights or Wichita Lineman or Galveston, any of these great songs, these big sweeping, in my mind, and I may be wrong, these big sweeping musicals I envision him in the RCA studio in Nashville and 33 pieces of violins playing the Wichita Lineman, and all this. But all that said, He actually started as, and forgive me if I'm wrong here, but part of the Wrecking Crew were basically non-union guys who would come in and go, "Hey, we'll play that part. We'll just play whatever part." And they were some of the best musicians in Nashville by far and away.
Yeah.
So when you come in and play guitar, banjo, strings, anything for Glenn Campbell, you got to be the man, Carl. You got to be the man. So tell your story. I don't know where to spin from there. That's just what I know.
Yeah. Well, there's a great story. Carl, I hope he tells the story while we're there of how he met Glenn and how he got the job. Because he actually auditioned for him at the Ohio State Fair. He just went to see the show. He had no idea. And Glenn asked him, and Glenn said, "Well, how much do you want?" And Carl said, $1 million. So anyway, I don't know if Glenn actually gave that to him at the time.
His negotiating skills are not what he's known for, is what I'm hearing.
But Carl is one of the, I have gotten so many opportunities in this town because of Carl Jackson.
Really?
He literally, he was one of the first people I met when I moved to Nashville. One of the first publishers I had introduced us. And we wrote songs together. We started writing songs together in the early 80s. And I actually met Larry and our other friends through Carl. Carl was writing for Ricky Skaggs Publishing Company at the time, which was part of a company called Welk Music. Ricky had a co-venture deal with them. And we literally just become great friends. I mean, he lucky for me, he thought I had a little bit of talent, and he really has been helpful. He's recorded a lot of my songs as him producing. Every time he produces a project, I do the same thing with him. And on my records, I've never done a record, I don't think, that Carl and Larry didn't sing on, at least, 2 or 3 songs. And so, but that's enough about Carl. Let's talk about Larry. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Carl, Carl. Yeah.
Well, I do want to talk about Cord, because that's his nickname, Cord, C-O-R-D. Cord is one of the greatest characters in the history of songwriting, in my opinion. He came to town having written by himself a little song called Highway 40 Blues.
Recorded by Mr. Ricky Skaggs, probably one of Ricky's top 5 or top 3. Got the Highway 40 Blues.
Yeah, it's one of the most recognizable. Yeah, and probably one of the most recognizable records in country music history, because when it starts off with that kickoff, everybody knows exactly what it is, And
then there's a little breakdown halfway through it, and yeah.
Right. But Ricky and Larry grew up in Lawrence County, Kentucky, out in the same area. I mean, they literally knew each other as kids. And they grew up playing and singing. And of course, Cord's got so many great stories about them in their younger days. But Ricky told him, one time, he said, if I ever, because Ricky grew up playing bluegrass and with Ralph Stanley, then he was with Tony Rice for a while, and just a lot of different configurations with different
Couldn't keep a job is what I'm hearing. Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's right. But when he said, I'm going to go to Nashville and try this country thing. And he told Cord back then, he said, if I ever get a chance, I want to record some of your songs. And sure enough, he recorded Highway 40 Blues. And if you know that song at all, you'll know that it has no chorus. It's 3 verses.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
It's a great example of someone who wrote an incredible song, who broke a lot of the rules that they'll tell you that you got to follow in Nashville, Mm-hmm. And so there's a great example of just God coming down and striking somebody with some great, he wasn't even thinking I-40, Interstate 40. There was a Highway 40 in Eastern Kentucky that he used to drive a lot back and forth from work. And that's where he got the idea. Isn't that funny?
That is classic.
And he's gone on to write one of my favorite Cord songs, is a song called Mama, Don't Forget to Pray for Me, that was a big hit for Diamond Rio. That's one of my very favorites he's ever written. Of course, Cord's had a lot of bluegrass hits. He records a lot of bluegrass records. Me and Cord do a lot of bluegrass solo records. And Carl's first Grammy, going back to Carl for just a minute, his first Grammy was in the late 1980s. He did a bluegrass record. I'm going to blank on the title of it. It's got him in a Yankees uniform on the front.
Like a baseball themed or something?
Yeah, baseball. The baseball themed. I know the title of that, and I can't think of it. Isn't that terrible? Anyway, he won his first Grammy for Bluegrass Album of the Year, and just he's just an incredible teacher, an incredible friend. And well, both those boys are. I'd do anything for either one of them. They'd do anything for me. I think we're just like the three amigos.
Well, and I don't think a lot of people understand, and not like I have any particular insight into it, but 30 years on the road together, and you still talk, and you still want to be together, and you're still friends, and you still there's more than just a passing acquaintance here, right?
Yeah, we love each other, man. We're brothers.
It sounds like it. I can tell. Give us the top 5 songs we would recognize from the concert. Obviously, Highway 40 Blues.
Highway 40 Blues. Gosh. I don't know exactly what all they'll do that night, but Carl's first top 10 song was a song called "Letter to Home" that Glenn Campbell had a top 10 record on. Mm-hmm. Folks might remember that one. Yep. He also had a big hit with Pam Tillis called "Put Yourself in My Place."
Oh yeah,
yeah. Carl and I had a hit song called "Breaking New Ground" that was not only a bluegrass hit for Seldom Seen in the late '80s, but was a top 10 country hit for a country group called Wild Rose, which was an all-girl group that was together for a while. I'll probably do "I Fell in the Water" that I wrote for John Anderson, was a top 10 record for him, and a song called "I'm Going to Take That Mountain" that was a top 10 for Reba.
Oh wow.
And I'll do some gospel stuff, so that's been number one, that sort of thing. Cord will probably do "Murder on Music Row." That was one of his big. Oh, really? It wasn't a huge hit, but it was nominated and won CMA Country Song of the Year one year. It was recorded by he recorded it on a bluegrass record, but then George Strait and Alan Jackson recorded it as a duet, and the song only got up to like 38 or 37 on Billboard because radio was kind of against it, because the music was starting to turn about that time from really traditional to more progressive. But luckily, the members of the Country Music Association recognized the value of the song and made it Song of the Year. So that's one that I'm sure we'll do. I hope we do. Man. But hopefully they'll recognize a lot of these songs, and we're really looking forward to it. We, like I said, I'm the baby of the group. We don't really travel as much as we used to, and so every show is special to us. I played with Carl this past weekend in the Gatlinburg Songwriters Festival, and Larry was not able to meet us. His wife has been ill, and he's been staying home a lot, taking care of her this summer. But we're really excited to have Cord back with us at the show in Hot Springs.
We're eager to have you, and I happen to know also that you ran into Bill at Gatlinburg, because that was where I did. The writers. We actually saw Dennis Lee in Gatlinburg, and I actually sang with him on stage. Oh gee, what's that been, 5 or 6 years ago? I say all that to say you'd be surprised what a sub hub, I would say, Gatlinburg is. There's a lot of talent in that little town. I mean, a lot of talent.
There's a lot of talent there, writing wise, singing wise, playing wise, a lot of bluegrass. There's a lot of bluegrass artists live in that part of the country.
Well, I was telling you in another show, that's where we met the guy who was the fiddlist for Rhonda Vincent. I'm trying to remember his name right now.
Was it Hunter Berry?
No. It was 2 short words, and I'm trying to remember. Oh, I'm blank on it right now. I bought an album from him. I actually chatted with him on Facebook a little, and I mentioned that because they were doing they did the bluegrass version of Crossroads. I went down to the crossroads, and they're doing this, and the bass takes a riff, the banjo takes a riff, the violin, the whole thing, and I'm like, I'm recording this, going, oh my God, what a great little concert at the Smoky Mountain whiskey or moonshine place. Anyway, I digress. I got to ask you the mandatory question: will you come back and be with us again, Sally?
Absolutely, man. I've enjoyed this, Dennis, so much, and God works in mysterious ways, and I think we're a couple of those, and
more mysterious than some, I think, actually.
But the fact that we had tried this 2 other times before today, one weather related and one technically, like you said, we just had some issues getting back together, but I feel like I've just got to know you, man, and I've really enjoyed it. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate your time in getting the word out and helping spread our music and the word about this show. We're really hoping for a good crowd.
I think we're going to have a great one. Actually, we're going to have this show come out Tuesday, which will be the 28th. And then you can still get your tickets. And by the way, you can get your tickets at hsvticketsales.org .com, hsvticketsales.com. And we are happy to see you. I plan on meeting you in person. How about that, Jerry?
I hope so, man. I hope we get to shake your hand and hug your neck.
I promise. Good to see you, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Hot Springs Village Inside Out, a podcast where Hot Springs Village, Arkansas is the star. Please subscribe to the podcast. You can do that by visiting our website, hsvinsideout.com, and tell a friend.